Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of combat sports, the great Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
How you like them football games? Were they magical?
Ooh.
Were they magical?
Oh my God, the whole weekend, UFC, NFL, what an awesome sports weekend. The games couldn't have been better.
If you didn't need this verified, I don't know, or you probably didn't, but you know, everyone knows that the quarterback is the highest paid athlete in football, at least a position playing football, and you could see why. I mean,
oh my God, yeah.
It came down to quarterbacks. Whoever had the best quarterback, and some of them it was like almost a tie, like you get in a horse race. You know, it doesn't happen too much. A photo finish, if you will. But wow, I mean, it does. Those guys. You saw how come they get that much money. You know, because wow, it was magical. It was actually magical. Some of that stuff was like they were making it up as they were doing it. It was crazy.
Certainly the Bills-Kansas City game, and then Tennessee, I would argue that the quarterback lost them the game, and Buffalo, and poor Josh Allen just didn't get a crack at the end, losing that coin toss. But that's what happens when you got a superstar on the other side of the field.
That's why you got a big head. You got a big head, Ken. You got a big head.
I would have. What an awesome.
Well, of course you would have.
So much fun.
Of course you would have. Of course you would have.
I went to the Tennessee game, was down on the field.
Wow.
All access. Oh, it was unbelievable. As soon as the Patriots lost, they called me up and they were like, Ken, we need to tighten up. Get down here. Yeah. I was like, I'm on my way. Let me just finish this run. I'll be right down.
Wow. I'm not surprised.
It was so much fun.
But don't forget, I knew you when you were as, famous and powerful. And all knowing.
You're the reason I get invited.
Before you can walk on water. Listen, I don't remember. I do remember back in the day. You might not remember, but I remember there used to be a time in football. I don't even know if it exists anymore. It doesn't seem like it does. But when you could win a Super Bowl without a great quarterback. Just a manager, a game manager. That's what they would call him. A game manager. The Chicago Bears way back with that defense. You go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that one year with that defense. You go to the Baltimore Ravens that one year with that defense. I think they had a guy, Tony Saragusa, and then he wound up
Saragusa.
Yeah, Saragusa. He wound up doing TV. He was funny. He was pretty good. They had him like a sideline guy, like eating a hero in between, telling you what was going on the sideline. It was cool. But those teams, trying to remember if there was another one I'm missing, but those teams kind of stand out in my mind as the last of the Mohegans that could actually win a Super Bowl, go all the way, without a great quarterback, just kind of like a game manager. Because nowadays, I can't see with the points that are put up, everything else, the show that it is now, I can't see a team really making the Super Bowl and winning it without a special quarterback. Like you just made a good point with the Tennessee quarterback. That was the difference in the game.
He played poor. He played poorly. Really did. I mean, some of those picks, I was like, dude, you can't see that safety sitting right there. Oh, the first interception was so
bad. It used to be that day when, people would say defense can win the Super Bowl for you, win the games for you. And again, those were the ones that stood out back then. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something.
You know what?
I don't
Today,
see it
though,
now.
Teddy, now if you hit the quarterback too hard, it's a 15-yard penalty. If you hit the receiver in the head, it's too hard. You got to protect the guys. But I mean, it's a completely different game now versus even like 10 or 15 years ago when you'd see guys get laid out every game.
No, I mean, it's almost like it's flag football sometimes.
Yep.
you touch these guys.
You could almost call a helmet-to-helmet targeting hit on every single tackle.
Oh yeah.
If you really wanted to get technical.
And I hate that part where the flags tell the game. You know what I mean? Where the penalties wind up becoming a part of the game, where it changes the results of a game, which it does sometimes. But those games were really something else yesterday. You know,
how about Green Bay losing at home? I thought for sure Aaron Rodgers was going to run through everyone. And congratulations to San Fran. The fans came out in droves to let me know that I picked against their team. People get so offended if you have an opinion that doesn't match theirs. Nevertheless, good win for San Fran. Wow, all the games were so incredible. All the 3 of the 4 home teams lost, right? Yeah, everyone except Kansas City lost their games at home on a field goal at the end.
Yeah. You know, everybody talking about, obviously, there's so many great quarterbacks that were out there, you know, with Brady and everything else going on. Have you talked to Tom lately? Do you know what he's doing? Is he retiring? What's he doing?
He's going out to Yellowstone in Montana to take some time to come up with a decision.
Right.
I think he'll be back.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it very much.
All right.
And, you know, with all these great, I mean, Mahomes, you know, all of them, obviously. But the one that's kind of gone under the wire, is not under the wire anymore, is the Rams quarterback.
Stafford?
Yeah,
Matt Stafford?
Yeah, he's had a hell of a year. And
dude, Teddy, he spent years with Detroit, who was like terrible. A doormat. They couldn't get out of their own way, and now he's like a game away from the Super Bowl. I'd love to see him do it.
He might do it. Really, I was just thinking that. Wouldn't that be, I don't know, poetic in a way, where, you know, with all the stars out there, and he's had a hell of a year, and he's gone under the radar a little underappreciated, not by his team and not by his fans, but, you know, on the whole of things, and that he would, with all the storylines that you could create out there, you know, with the Hollywood endings and everything, with the leading star, the leading man, if you will, with the quarterback you could choose and plug in, he might wind up being a guy. You know, not the guy you would have, you know, sometimes you hear about these great movies where when you find out years later who was supposed to be the star, right? Who was supposed to be but something happened. Something happened. He turned down the script. He got sick, whatever. And somebody else got called in there and bang. It's like,
how do you like OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., like having a rough time with the Giants? Then he has problems in Cleveland. Now he's a game away from the Super Bowl with a superstar team and an unbelievable supporting cast in Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is probably the best receiver in football. That guy is
incredible.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah,
they looked so good.
He did.
And their defense,
he did have a fumble,
God.
But he made up for that fumble, didn't he?
Their defense, Ndamukong Suh, he's got to be like 55 years old. They got, who's the other kid? Donald, what the hell's the other guy's name, the superstar?
Oh,
Aaron Donald?
Donald, yeah. Yeah, he's the defensive end.
So much,
great pass rusher.
They put so much pressure. My God,
hey, San Fran has a great pressure cookers there. They're great linemen. With Bosa and
Bosa he's like J.J. Watt, like a difference maker. You just have to have everyone covering him you have to double team him on every play.
And you know what it comes down with guys like that, just for the audience out there, we're talking about this, but you know, you could talk about genetics, of course, and all that stuff, but you could also just talk about hustle. That guy's engine is always going like
100%. That's what happens when you take perfect genetics and match it with a work ethic that you can't describe. When I was, you know how it is. You worked with the Jets, but when you're down on the field, when I was real close to the Cincinnati receivers warming up, and then the offensive linemen. When you see how big and athletic and physical those guys are, and fast in person, like at eye level, it's mind-boggling.
Well, the craziest thing, you're right. The craziest thing is watching. I remember my son, of course, works in the NFL, and I remember being on the sidelines with him during games, and it was just a great thing because I'm there with my son on the sidelines of an NFL game, and he's part of it. It was just the most prideful thing you could feel, and you know, and he would remind me something that be alert, you know, which I used to remind him of. You know, the funny thing. And he's telling me, be alert, Dad. It comes fast. And, you know, and it does. You got to be alert. You get a broken leg down there very easily. And we're down there. And I just remember one day, actually was at practice. I was out at practice. They had asked me to come out to training camp to speak to the team years ago. And I was out there, and I'm at practice with them. And we're watching them doing one of the scrimmages, and then of course same thing on the game, you know, even more so the speed. But I remember just looking at my son and saying, wow, it reminds you of the speed and power. I mean, when you're right there, a few feet away from it, and it's like I said to my son, it's like car crashes. It's like little cars crashing. It really is. It's like little mini cars crashing. I mean, they're so strong and powerful. They got the equipment on, and they're so fast. Oh.
I was thinking about that when they were pressuring Brady and slamming him to the ground it seemed like every time he dropped back, he was rushed and he was getting slammed to the ground almost like every other throw. He took a beating in that game.
They earn their money, just like fighters in the combat sports, obviously. Well, everybody, but boy, those athletes, because their career could be over in just such a quick moment, just like that. It could be over. And then even when you think about the shelf lives on the running backs, what is it, 4 years, 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
Then you see a guy like Frank Gore who played for like 20 years.
Oh, yeah, you got those guys. You got those exceptions. But, it really was something. Watching those comebacks and those back and forth, that drama. It was better than
I'd say that was
movies.
the best weekend, one of the best weekends of football I've ever seen. And then on top of that, we had some awesome fights Saturday night, boxing and UFC. The UFC, it just, again, sound like a broken record because every weekend they put on such awesome fights. And we've got a ton to discuss regarding the UFC. But if you don't mind, let's start with the boxing.
Let me say one thing before we start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one thing. I was up early today. I just want to say something just share it with everybody. It's just one of those things. And I got asked to speak to a public school a while back if I would go into the school this morning and read books to the kids, kindergarten. So, I got grandchildren. And this is a Title I school. Where basically Title I schools in New York, the definition is families making less than $25,000 a year. So it's abject poverty. And so anyway, I say yes. I get there today. And first of all, there's no parking. It's like complete chaos. Like there's buses, there's cars, everyone's double, triple parked. I mean, you can't park nowhere. And I don't want to be late. And I'm like, I call up my great executive director at the Dr. Atlas Foundation, and I said, can you call the school and tell them like this? No, I'm here, but like there's no parking. And they get back, they're like, oh yeah, there's no parking. Oh, well, I knew that. I kind of knew that. I deciphered that. I want them to tell me where I can park. My God. So now I go around the street, I'm coming down the other side of the school, and there's a security guy. He's got a walkie-talkie, and he's directing traffic, whatever. And I said, let me give it a shot. So I go over to him, I said, hey, buddy. So he goes, hey, you work with Ken, don't you? Hey, you work. Yeah, it startled me a little. That'll wake you up in the morning, Ken. That I was tired. I was a little drowsy. That'll wake you up quick. You talk about having, a shot of espresso? No. Hey, you work with Ken? Yeah, I do. Listen, hey, buddy. He was a good guy. He goes, hey, Teddy. I said, listen, I'm supposed to talk at that school. There was 2 schools next to each other. I said, I'm supposed to talk at that school over there. And I got to get in there, and there's nowhere to park. And he goes, yeah, it's a mess. I said, yeah. So he goes, listen, don't tell anyone I told you, but go down. You can't see it from here, but go down past those buses, past those cars down there, make a right. You can't see it, but it's just a tiny little opening. You go in there and park in the principal spot. I said, oh, yeah, I got no problem doing that. After I'm out here and they're telling me they got no parking. I said, she deserves to have her spot taken today. He goes, yeah, she does. And he's laughing. He's laughing. He goes, tell Ken I said hello. I said, I will. I definitely will. So I shoot down there, and, I get down, and I must have made the right a little too soon, because I see a spot, so I go in. But it was just a little tiny driveway that led to a door, and there's a container and a door and walls of concrete. I said, what the hell with it? I gotta just leave it here. I gotta leave it here. So I just leave it there. I go in, hey, Mr. Atlas, we're waiting. I said, my car is in some spot, some little driveway spot. Can you do me a favor? Can you make sure it's there when I get out? And so they said, where'd you put? And then they said, okay, no problem. So we'll figure it out. So I go in there, I talk to the kids, and I'm reading them stories, and they gave me a book to read them, and it was It was a letter to Amy. I think that was the name of it. I think it was a letter to Amy, and nice little story. And I'm reading the story, and I'm doing it my style. I'm creating different things, and I'm making little stuff up. I'm asking them questions, and stuff. And the teacher, I look through the corner of my eye, Ken, and the teacher's looking to see where these words are coming from, because she's looking. Does he have the same book that I have? And she's looking over, I thought I gave him letter to Amy. I could have sworn. And I give her the okay, because I know what she's doing. I give her the okay. No, I'm good. I know what I'm all right. And it's Tales from Teddy. So I'm reading and I'm asking them questions. They're answering back and they're saying, yeah, what kind of dog is that? That's what kind of bird is that? It's a parrot. It's a different colors. And we're just having a good old time. And then I'm injecting little things in there, little life stories for 5-year-olds. You have to adjust it a little bit, and going all that. And, of course, during one of them, I'm talking about how the mom and dad, it was talking about the mother and father. So the mother and father, and then I throw in there that, you can tell your mother and father, you could talk to them, but you could also ask somebody else, but never ask somebody that you don't know, and make sure that your mother or your father says it's okay. And all of a sudden this little beautiful girl says, but I don't have a father. And it just strikes you. It just grabs you a little bit. And I said, but you have a mother. Yes. I said, and a beautiful mother. Yes. And she's got a beautiful daughter. And she's smiling. I took her mind off of that, and now she's smiling. I said, and she's got a beautiful girl. And so we get past that. But it reminds you that not everybody has what my grandchildren have. And it also reminded me, just for a split second, it reminded me that they're all the same as my grandchildren, in a way that these kids, they all need attention, love, and somebody they can give love back to. And it just hit me. I said, my grandchildren have all that. And every kid that age should have all that. But they don't. And then it's our job, outside, in any way we can, to try to fill the holes. A little bit. I know it's our job to take care of our family. I get it. I do. But if we can fill the holes a little bit in other ways and be aware of those things and be aware of that everyone, just the simple stuff, that not everybody has what we have. Not everybody is as fortunate. And it just hit me that there's just some things that everyone should have. Forget about the poverty level, forget about the economic status, but everyone should be able to get care. Everyone should be able to get attention. Everyone should be able to get love. But it doesn't always happen. So anyway, it was just a reminder. I don't need to be reminded of those things usually, to be honest, but it just grabbed me. And then, so I'm leaving. And as I'm leaving, little girl in the back, kids recognize things. They recognize you took the time. They're very smart. And just to what I'm speaking about, just to that point, as I'm leaving, she yells out, I love you. And I just said, that's what my grandchildren said to me this morning when they left. And they had somebody to say it to. Maybe she didn't have no one to say it to. And then today she got somebody to say it to. So I yelled back, I love you. I love yous all. And then all of a sudden, we love you. Are you coming back? I said, yeah. I didn't get permission from the school yet. My car is over there. You know what I mean?
The car's now towed, you mean?
Well, I was worried about that. So I said, yeah, I'm coming back. And then I'm just about to walk out the door, and I turned and I said, listen, if your teacher says it's okay, one more thing. I turned to her, and by the way, I brought them little gifts. I brought them like coloring books.
I'm not surprised.
And little crayons and cupcakes. I had to get cupcakes.
I'm not surprised. I think over the years you sent my kids gifts, my wife when she was in Philly.
Have a couple cupcakes. And then one of the little girls, you got to point out special thing. She says, could I have one for my brother? And I said, see how special you are? And I made sure the class saw. She's not thinking of herself. She's thinking of her brother. See how special you are? So anyway, I'm getting ready to leave. I said, if your teacher, I'm going to ask your teacher if it's okay, but if it is, I want to come around. If you guys say I could, I'd give you each a hug. And the teacher says, yeah, and they all start saying, yeah. So I go around, and Ken, they all gave me a hug, but some of them gave you the little hugs, just a little one, like you do. It's not really, it's not a huge hug. And then all of a sudden, I'm just kidding with you. And then all of a sudden, these girls, these kids, some of them boys, mostly girls, they just gave me a hug, like squeezed the heck out of you. And it was like, wow, this is what they need. I mean, I need it too, don't get me wrong, but like, whoa. And just this big giant hug. And so anyway, I got out of there, and then I get out of there, and then I walked down the stairs, and my thought went back to the real world again. I said, hey, my car, am I gonna get home? I'm gonna get home. And said, yeah, Teddy, we got someone that they kept an eye on it. You're good. And you know what? There's only one thing you should have done. I said, what? And he's looking around to see if anybody's looking. You should have parked in the principal spot. I said, yeah, you're right. Next time I will. Don't worry. Anyway, I just felt that was a cute story. Maybe a reminder to all of us.
Good reminder.
Just a little bit of humanness. I made that word up, but it's okay. It works. I know what it means. Let's go, baby. Come on, let's go.
Story.
Let's go fight.
Thank you for sharing. Let's start with the boxing. Co-main on the Gary Russell Jr. card. We had Subriel Matias gets his revenge against Petros Ananyan. Stops him in 9. Awesome fight. Rematch from 2 years prior. Where Matias got the unanimous or majority decision. I'll double check that. But what'd you think? I know you watched that fight and had some thoughts. Dying to hear what you thought. It was Petros Ananyan. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing his name right before the fans get upset. And he had lost a unanimous decision 2 years, almost exactly 2 years prior.
Yeah, listen, first of all, it was a great fight. All right?
Great fight.
And he revenged. He got revenge. Matias got his revenge. I believe he was 17-0 with all knockouts when he fought him the first time, and that was his first loss. So now with revenging the loss, he's 18-1, and he stopped him. So he's got all his wins are knockouts, and his only loss was, a decision to, as you said, to Ananyan. So he stays on track. He wants to be the next special guy from Puerto Rico. We've had so many special fighters from Puerto Rico. I want the Puerto Rican fans to hear me say that, because we always talk about the great Mexican fans and the great history with Mexico, the tradition. Well, Puerto Rico has a damn good tradition.
We can't even mention Puerto Rico in boxing without shouting out the great Rosie Perez,
Rosie,
my favorite movie star.
Yeah, she's the queen of boxing, I call her. At least in the New York area. She loves boxing.
For sure.
She loves boxing. She goes to all the fights. She goes and
she was in that Tyson documentary that you participated in.
Yeah. She comes to my charity foundation to help us raise money for the unfortunate people out there that are fighting a different kind of fight than we are. So I appreciate the heck out of her. I love her. So hopefully, I think she's been on our podcast early on.
That's right.
When we first started. before we got to 227,000 subscribers, which, it's good. And 43 million downloads. I like to say that. I don't know. Hope people don't mind me saying that once a while. I feel proud and I feel appreciative to the fans that we're talking to, that we can say that. And hopefully it continues growing. I want 1 million. I want 1 million, baby. I'm like McDonald's. I want 1 million sold. I want 1 million burgers sold over here in the Golden Arch. I want 1 million subscribers over here, and so we can keep going. Listen, as I said, Matias comes from a place in Puerto Rico, that small little island that has so many great fighters. And he wants to, he gets to keep moving forward now to be one of the special guys. This is the analysis of the fight. Both of them, the first fight was great. The second fight was great. They're both of them, they play Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Neither one of them really is going to get any award for defensive prowess. They're not going to get those.
Unfortunately, you need a little bit of that. At that weight class, 140 is stacked with talent. You better have a little bit of defense. You can't just get in there and wing because someone's going to clip you.
But the thing that they both do, and that Matias does better, is they're both right in front of you, and they both have great heart, great grit, and they throw a lot of punches. Matias won for a couple reasons. One, he's a bit younger, fresher. I think that Ananyan is getting a little shop worn. So he's fresher, he's younger, and his hands were faster. See, that's one thing I was waiting for the commentators to point out. But that was so telling to me. His hands were quicker, so he had the edge. When you got two Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the guy that's faster rocking and socking them, he's going to win. It's not complex. So, and the other thing, Matias, he strung more punches together. I mean, this guy strung together 5-6 punch combinations in a pretty smooth rhythm. I was impressed with that. He just kept them coming. He was machine-like. I mean, he was just spitting them out. And Ananyan's not far behind, but he's a little bit behind. And that's what made the difference. And it was just, if somebody would add defense, a little head movement after you punch with Matias, oh boy. To go with his grit and his heart, and his, his ability, his engine, his battery to just keep pumping out those punches, they'd have something even better than what they have right now. But he makes for good fights, and there's a sad, if you look at his record, see, I try to point everything out. And if you look at his record, Ken, you're going to recognize as soon as I tell you this, Ken, and you'll feel bad too. All the people feel bad if you're human, but he had to get over having a fatality on his record. A guy that died in the ring, Maxim Dadashev.
A horrible story.
He was on.
It's hard. That's an emotional story, man.
A lot of people probably don't even realize that, but if they're going to follow Matias, you probably should realize that in July of 2019, he fought the undefeated. He was undefeated, obviously. He fought the undefeated Dadashev, Maxim Dadashev. Tremendous kid. Trained in Oxnard, where we would be, where we were out there. And Ken came out there to do a podcast.
Guys.
Yeah. Ken came out there to do an early podcast with Lomachenko. He was out there. And we were in the gym there where I trained Oleksandr Usyk, and where Lomachenko trained. And he, Dadashev passed away after that fight. And so that's a hard thing to overcome, really. For anybody, but to have to fight and hit people for a living, and then, you hit somebody and they didn't get back up, and then you got to go do that for the rest of your career. It's not the easiest thing, emotionally, psychologically to overcome. It's not. And so Matias obviously has dealt with that. So again, it was a terrific fight. You don't always get those, and I'll throw this one thing in there because I do pride myself that I try to cover everything. It was a terrific one-sided fight because it was one-sided. There was one guy getting the better of it. The rounds were, was action, but there was action mostly or more on the side of Matias. But anyway, that was a co-feature, and it was a good co-feature as far as, starting off, kind of like when you go to a rock and roll concert or you go to whatever kind of music that you prefer, and the warm-up band is a good band. It gets you into it. It gets you into it, gets the juices flowing. The warm-up band was good. The warm-up band got you ready to go and do what Ken does, dancing aisles. You know what I mean?
Ken does not know how to dance. I'm the worst dancer ever.
Dance in those aisles,
I wish I could dance.
Yeah.
I would be out there in the aisle if I had any skills at all.
Yeah, I wish.
But that was a good co-main, and the main event I thought was really entertaining as well. Mark Magsayo takes Gary Russell Jr.'s featherweight WBC title. Beat him in a majority decision. Scores were 114 from one judge and 15-13 on the other two. Really close. Gary looked to damage his shoulder in about the fourth round, and I think he legitimately tore something because he didn't use the right for the rest of the fight. So he fought him with one arm, and when you consider what he was able to do with one arm, he basically lost by one round. Unbelievable guts and determination from Gary. I wish the guy would stay more active, and I want to get your thoughts on his inactivity, and if you think being out of the ring for 2 years contributed to that injury. I know obviously he's sparring and stuff, but like we've talked about with Dustin Poirier in the past, when you're sparring, there's always a level of control, and you're not going to get into like really deep waters, and no one's trying to hurt each other. When you're in a fight, it's to the death sometimes, or at least that's the mentality these guys have. And I just wonder if that inactivity and being in those big action fights might have contributed to the shoulder injury. Curious to hear what you think.
Sometimes it's good to be in a garage because then you're not out on the road, and, the engine rests a little bit, and the spark plugs and everything don't get used, and the pistons stay clean, and there's an argument that you can stay fresh. But there's also an argument that when you stay too fresh and you're in that garage too long, that the pistons and the spark plugs, they're not used to acting like pistons and sending a charge like a spark plug, and things can get a little tight, a little stiff, and when you haven't been out on the road, all of a sudden you can blow a piston. Because again, the oil hasn't been flowing through the engine where it's going to be quite as smooth as it should be. So there's an argument both ways, especially if it's an older fighter where you get a little rest, a little time in the garage where you're not getting hit. You're not out on the road putting miles on the odometer. You stay a little fresher. But again, there's another side to it. There's a give and take. Where you're in the garage, you're not out on the road, but again, the muscles, everything, the tendons, whatever you want to say, the pistons aren't used to hitting. They're not used to pumping, and something can get chipped a little bit. Something can be too stiff. Something can break. So that's the first thing to answer that question. The other thing. He's the longest reigning, at least they announced him as the longest reigning champion out there that lost his title. Well, I mean, when you fight like 6 times in 7 years, I'm not trying to take any, but again, I pride us as the people that put it all out there.
You're not trying to be funny. You're speaking facts. I think he's fought 5 times in 5 years. It might be even fewer. Honestly, he has a reputation of being the most inactive guy. It's frustrating because when you see him do what he did with one left hand, you're like, why isn't this guy fighting more often? And there's a bunch of examples of like Nassim Hamed fought like 15 times in 5 years or something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Ken, I bring it up because it should be brought up, because we're supposed to be the show that brings everything up, that hopefully is the, as I said one time, I described as the CAT scan, because we're gonna X-ray stuff. We're gonna try to give you everything, whether you like it or not, whether we like to talk about it or not. But if it's there to be talked about, we want to get it out there. We want to cover whatever's a possibility of being maybe an intangible, being something that should be said rather than not said, covering it all, and have nothing to do with relationships with this person, that person, this promoter, just everything that should be is spoken of, and full transparency. And it was 2 years since his last fight. Just a little under, maybe a month under. But let's say 2 years, rounded off. 2 years since his last fight. Yeah, you could get injured. Yeah, you get rested. But yeah, you could get injured. Especially when you're a guy that depends on speed and that stuff, rather than just power, right? And, finesse. You're dependent on that. Yeah, it could be damaged. Yeah, there'd be a different kind of a situation that you could pay a price for. Having said again, right, X-ray machine. I know not everyone likes to get an X-ray because it might show something broke. I know.
Like my shoulder.
Yeah, like your shoulder. And I hope it gets better and you're going to get that all fixed up because you fell and you hurt it. And everybody hopes that. But yeah, X-rays show stuff, okay? And when he came out after the fight, Russell, and he said that he had heard it 2 weeks ago in camp, he tore a tendon. That got my attention. I got to tell you, that got my attention. That's why it's good I don't do interviews. We would have been in the ring probably 45 minutes because wait a minute, you tore T-O-R-E, not strain. You tore a tendon 2 weeks ago in camp, and a doctor, obviously it had to be a doctor that told you tore your tendon because they had to be, right? You had to go.
You'd have to have an MRI to determine
right?
that
you have to have an MRI.
There's no gray area.
No gray area. So that's exactly the point. So a doctor does an MRI, tells you got a torn tendon 2 weeks before world title defense, right? And he allows you to train for 2 weeks and then fight? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm asking.
I will say this. I'll say this. You can have a small tear. I have a torn rotator cuff and labrum, and it hurts.
No, you could get through it if you could tolerate it.
You could get through it.
You could get through it. I just don't know.
There's different levels of severity.
Yeah, there's levels of damage. So
yeah,
if the doctor's worth his doctor's license, he's telling you could do that, and then, of course, you could fight. Maybe he tells him there's a risk. All right. But, all right. It just caught my attention when he said that, number one. I mean, because it could be a strain, it could be this, it could be that. But he made it very definitive. It was a tear, I'm sorry. So,
yeah.
So that's the first thing. And then, let's just put it out there. Taking nothing away from him. He fought through it with one arm. But we've had fighters, champions, have won fights. He didn't wind up winning it, but have fought fights with one arm. I mean, there's a list of them. I mean, real quick, the first one comes to my mind that's very similar was a southpaw, just like Gary, because it was his right arm, his lead arm, the important arm, because you're using your jab, especially if you're a defensive quick fighter like he is, the style he is. The jab's very important. So that gets taken away. All right, I'm giving him full credit here, by the way. That's when I'm going down this road. So it's his most important hand. And Lomachenko against Linares, if my memory serves me correctly, Ken, he had one arm in that fight. He got reduced to just a southpaw, just like Russell. So he got reduced. He got his lead hand, his jabbing hand, taken away, and he could only, like Gary, he could only use his left hand. And he had been dropped in that fight, or he got dropped in that fight with Linares. So he had that to overcome too. And Lomachenko wound up stopping Linares with a body shot with the left hand. And then, to know the severity, we know the severity. Why? Well, because afterwards he went and got surgery on that right shoulder. I believe it was a torn right labrum. I'm pretty sure that's what labrum. I'm sorry. Or if you hang out with Teddy, it's lumbum. But it's but no, it's labrum. Okay, definitely. Orson Welles, no. I love Orson Welles, but I will not be mistaken.
And I can tell you that a torn
Orson Welles didn't know
painful.
boxing as well as I do either, even though he spoke
true.
a lot cleaner than I did. But a torn labrum. And we don't know. Here's what I'm saying. We don't know. There's always this speculation, but we don't know what that injury, the public, don't know what that injury is definitively until there's a medical report, which you would expect after this fight. We don't. It's not Teddy Atlas taking this side, that side. The haters come out. Or get out of here, please. Go chew bubblegum somewhere. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Go chew bubblegum in the basement of your grandma or your mom or somebody with your baggy underwear. Leave me alone. Because I'm just pointing out what needs some people. Until we have a medical report, we don't know exactly what the condition of that. We know he fought with one arm. Okay? We know that. Now, I also know that he didn't throw the jab anymore, really, but he did use it to measure. He did pick it up. He did push it out there. I never saw distress. I never saw pain. Now, I'm not saying you have, I don't know, but you didn't see that. But you saw, obviously, that he made a switch. He used his left hand. He pot shot it. I give him credit. He was able to pot shot. He was able to score. He was able to do okay with one hand. I mean, he was actually pot shotting, and there were some rounds he could get and win because he was just two things. One, what he was doing with his opponent, Magsayo, was not doing. Magsayo wasn't busy enough. He wasn't taking advantage enough. And Russell was able to play defense, which he's a good defensive fighter, and he was able to pot shot enough with left hands and score where he won some rounds. He won rounds. I don't know if the scores should have been as close as they were with the judges, to be honest with you. I had a little difficulty with that. I thought that at the very least that Magsayo out-hustled him, outworked him. I mean, you would think so. He's got two hands versus one. But I thought they were a little close, but you could see where he could win rounds just pot shotting with effective left hands that he was allowed to do. And one of the, I don't know, I was going to say criticism. One of the questions I have, that's better. One of the questions I have is, why did the trainer of Magsayo and Magsayo himself, but if he don't, then it's the trainer's job, can recognize what I think we all recognize, and what I recognize was that Gary Russell didn't have a working right hand. So why not attack to that side? There's no danger there. There's none. Until he shows you he was lying or something, there's no danger. So attack to that side. Stay away from the one side where there is danger, his left hand. So attack to your left, to his right. Why did you not do that and just stay on him like a wet suit, and just keep coming at him and keep pounding at him? If he had showed you, he's got nothing to keep you off with. So that was kind of curious to me. Like, how did they miss that? Taking advantage of that from the fourth round on. And it was a little mind-boggling or head-scratching that Magsayo wasn't as busy, period. Left side, right side. At this point, I don't give a damn. But why wasn't he busier with a one-handed guy than he was? There was spots he allowed Gary Russell to pot shot him and win rounds because he wasn't busy enough. He just didn't do enough. The interesting thing was the first 4 rounds when Russell was healthy.
Yeah.
Magsayo looked good. Magsayo right there looked like he was going to give him trouble. Right there. He looked good. Why did he look good? He's big. He's long. He's busy. And a little awkward, but he was moving his hands. He was making Russell do what a counterpuncher doesn't like to do. Come in. Because he's taller, he's longer. And he was controlling range well enough where Russell was being put into an uncomfortable place where he was being made kind of like Mayweather with McGregor the first 4 rounds, where McGregor stayed outside. Nobody thought he had a chance, and he stayed outside. He used his long reach. He used his southpaw position with that long jab. He stayed outside, and Mayweather's a counterpunch. He likes you to come in and he picks you apart. And it took a while to realize, I got to go get this guy. I got to adjust gears here from what I normally like to do. And that's kind of like Russell had to adjust gears. Besides, even early on, before he hurt his arm, he had to, he couldn't, the guy wasn't cooperating, being that he was long and controlling range. He wasn't able to get him into the distance that he could counter so easy. So Russell had to start coming after him a little bit. And what did Magsayo do? He started countering him. He started countering the counterpuncher. He started catching with uppercuts as he came in. And being a shorter guy, the uppercut makes sense. So he started throwing uppercuts, catching him coming in, giving him something to think about. Again, making him fight a fight he didn't want to fight, that he was uncomfortable with. So I'm looking at him saying, this is going to be an upset here. Unless things drastically change, this could be an upset here. And I thought Magsayo looked better. This might get some people going nuts, but I thought Magsayo looked better, Ken, when Russell was healthy. The first 4 rounds, I did. I thought he looked better. And then I thought he got took things for granted and he took off the gas a little bit. Later he picked it up a little bit. But he took his foot off the gas a little bit when he realized there was a one-armed man in front of him. And he didn't keep fighting with the same tenacity, the same ferocity, the same focus that he did when he was healthy, when he knew that he had to deal with Gary Russell, the world champion with 2 arms. So that's what I saw. Again, very curious where the medical reports are going to come, just to see the significance of that injury. I found it curious a little bit, Ken. And again, X-ray machine, I can't help it. Where Gary went out of his way. He deserves credit. I give it to him. But he went out of his way, not once, not twice, but 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. Kept telling us how brave he was, how tough he was, what a warrior he was, what a dog he was. Okay, I got you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that movie, Jerry Maguire. I had you at hello. You know what I mean? I had you at hello. And he's giving it to me. You know what I saw? It's psychological, right? Everything in the world's psychological. It's mental. 75% of these fighters are under great stress. It's 75%. I started thinking, you got kids. I got grandchildren. I have kids that are not kids anymore. But it almost got to the point where he sounded defensive. Like he was defending something. I know not too many people would bring this up, and the haters out there, they're gonna get their forks and knives ready to eat them, ready to cut into me a little bit. It's okay. Again, you got your own problems. You're in a basement in your grandmother's or your mother's with baggy underwear, chewing bazooka bubblegum. That's not pretty. That's not pretty. So I don't blame you if you're looking to go after Teddy, but all I'm saying is that it just made me think a little bit, Ken. Like when a kid starts saying, I'm good, and then you found out he did something bad. You know what I mean? I mean, they're kids, right? When he started defending himself that much, I was like, all right, I got you once, twice, 3 times, but now you got me thinking, what are you defending? In your mind, I don't know. That you gotta tell. I don't get it. I don't know. So that was a little curious. The tangible stuff, the stuff that we can wrap our heads around that you can't question, is that, yeah, he used one arm, and he was good defensively. He pot-shotted. He won rounds with one arm. Give him credit. I give him credit for that. The rest of it's a little confusing. But at the end of the day, you got the end of the longest, shortest reign in boxing. And again, I'm not trying to be a wise guy. I'm just trying to really define things the proper way completely. He was the longest reigning champion, but again, we both concur on this, right, Ken? That, when you defend the title, you fight 7 times or 6 times in 7 years, whatever it is. I don't have it in front of me. It's a little different than being the longest reigning champion who's fighting 5 times a year. Not to mention that if we go back to the heyday, the golden age of boxing, although the 80s was tremendous. The 80s was so special. But if you go back to the 30s, when it was the biggest sport in the country, bigger than baseball, the 30s and 40s, I know it's a different era, but you had fighters like Henry Armstrong that fought 30 times in a year. I said it. Yeah, I say it again. 30 times in a year. It's a career. It's a career nowadays. It might be 2 careers. I don't know. But so you got to look at everything as relative to its time, its place. I understand that. I just want the people to be informed of everything that's out there. So we have a new champion in Magsayo, and it's congratulations to him.
Yep, congratulations.
I got to ask you one other question.
Go.
Whoever makes the decisions at Showtime, executives, promoters, half and half, whatever. I'd love to see the numbers that fight did, because
oh my God, against the UFC.
Ken, who thinks it's a good idea? I mean, if you're sober, maybe if you're not sober, a lot of things are good ideas. But who thinks sober that it's a good idea to put a fight on up against the UFC title fights? Heavyweights, right? Title fights, 2 title fights, and the NFL. I mean, why not? Why not? If you're going to go crazy, go crazy. You know what I mean? If you're going to go for it, go for it. Right? If you're going to go for it.
But it's a good point.
Why just fight? If you're going to try to shake the world, why just fight Godzilla? Throw King Kong in there, throw Martha in there, right? Go for it. Why would you go up? Seriously now, they get paid a lot of money, these people. Why would they think it's a good idea to go? I'm just asking a question, Ken. Ken, can you answer that for me? To go up against the UFC and the NFL in one night, and I'd like to see the numbers. We got to get those. I don't think that those fighters. That was a good card Showtime put on from the last 3 fights. The main, the co-main, and the fight before that was really good too. I just don't think they have a lot of choices. The UFC's on every night for the rest of the year, every Saturday, basically for the rest of the year. Once a month is pay-per-view. The NFL. Where else are they going to shoehorn Gary in? They're going to put him on a Friday or a Sunday. I don't think that they have choices. Yeah, the NFL. Wait a minute. I get you. See, we cover everything. I get you, and we debated. We put it out there. We're fair, but don't go against me too often, though. But here's.
Oh no, I'm not going against you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We put it all out there. We debated if we need to. We put it out there. We want to be fully transparent, and we want to be fair. Okay, so we are. We're debating this, but the NFL playoffs is for 4 weeks. It's a 4-week window. I mean, I think maybe if I'm making that decision, I'm avoiding that 4-week window. Maybe.
I would have put this fight on a Friday night, but here's the thing that I think the big question here is I don't think this fight draws anyway.
Even if you put it on one of the nights where you don't have a late playoff game, something. But
I don't think that fight, Teddy. I don't think that fight does big numbers if there's nothing on. I just don't think that's for boxing purists.
But still,
I don't think the average fan cares.
I get that point because of the style of Russell, that he's not a guy that creates fires. I get it. he's a defensive-oriented guy that disarms somebody. Like going to a baseball game.
And he's 126 pounds.
120, like going to a baseball game and seeing a guy that's going to throw a three-hitter and he's going to, he's going to change the speeds, hit the corners. He's not going to blow the ball past you at 95 miles an hour, but he's going to mix it up and he's going to disarm the batter. Okay, not everyone wants to see that. They want to see, smash and crash, and they want to see balls going over the fence. So not everyone's going to be a guy clamoring to see Gary Russell, but you still got to put your best foot forward. You still got to give him a chance to get good numbers, to get the best numbers possible. You gotta, as an executive, as a promoter, you have to still try to do that. I just don't see where they tried to do that. Please.
No, it looks like they threw him under the bus. Like they had a date to fill, and they were like, who can we stick in here? Who's not going to do good numbers anyway?
Ken, see when you debate something, see when you go on, a comprehensive discussion, an intelligent, fair discussion. You come up with things that you might not have come up with if you just let it go. You come up with something. You say, you just said that. I said, aha, that sounds plausible. I mean, it's something to think about. It's something to think. They're not going to waste one of their, I'm not going to say stars, but one of their, one of their guys that
they're not putting Charlo in there.
One of the guys that they depend on for numbers. Let's put it nice. Mm-hmm. They're not going to risk him. They're not going to throw him to the wolves. But he might have got thrown to the wolves a little bit. You'll see. So. You're going to see a report now. The Gary Russell's people decided to leave Showtime. They were thrown to the wolves. we just started a problem here. We just started them thinking about something. But no, it let us talk, and through talking, it let us come up with a scenario that's possible, and for the fans to think of something and have some thought of what could it be. It sounds possible. So anyway, we covered that thing like a glove.
Yeah, we've got a lot to discuss with the UFC as well.
Don't forget, if he did hurt his arm 2 weeks before, right? Obviously, it's his choice to go in there.
I thought that he said it was lingering from like the amateurs, that he's always had a problem with his shoulder.
Yeah, but
it got worse maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it got worse. He actually said that they wanted to operate, but that he didn't. And this was back in the Olympic days or whatever it was. He was an Olympian, and then it flared up. It got worse, and so he heard it 2 weeks ago. Reheard it, whatever you want to define it as. Obviously, it wasn't bothering him in other fights. And then, to the point that we knew about it. And then he decides to go with that problem and fight. And it just makes you think, how prepared, how serious did he take this opponent? Maybe he took him a little light. Maybe, like how...
Well, like the kid was undefeated. I hope he didn't take him too lightly.
Yeah, but undefeated in my business, in this business, Ken.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go and find a lot of places where you can fill that record up with guys that are now world beaters very, very easily. You could build a record up. It's not what your record is. It's who did you beat on that record. But just making a point that he... make a choice to go in, from what we're taking for his word, to go into a fight not 100%. And it might have spoke to his mindset of what he thought of his opponent, but it might have spoke to overall his preparation for this fight, because he came in heavy. Let's not leave that out. He came in a half pound. Now, a lot of people say Teddy. It was only a half pound. Half pound? Wait a minute, guys. You're not in the boxing business your whole life. A half a pound at 126 pounds, that means something. Number one, it means a little more. Number two, if he came in a half a pound heavy at the weigh-in, got on the scale, and he was a half a pound heavy, who knows what he really was But to get down to 126.5, he might have had to lose 10 pounds.
Yep.
12 pounds, 8 pounds, 6 pounds. But if he was a half pound heavy and he gets on the scale heavy, then who knows really what he was. So you have to question his overall preparation in every way going into this fight. I'm taking nothing away from Magsayo. Nothing. Again, I'm just being an x-ray and trying to put it all together for you and give you everything you need to put it together.
Well, before we get into the UFC, the one thing I'll say about staying healthy is that the number one supplement that I take to stay healthy, and people ask me all the time, if you could only take one thing, what do you think the most important thing is? I tell people all the time, it's Athletic Greens. The daily green drink, again.
Gary Russell might want to get on some of that stuff. You know, then he might not have that problem of coming in a half a pound heavy. You know, that might be the better stuff to snack on and to supplement on than maybe the stuff that he is. I don't know.
And if he is going to use it, I hope he goes to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to get 10 free travel packs with your first purchase, which are great for taking on the road to fights, to training camp, etc., etc. These guys at Athletic Greens spent 10 years with the top nutritionists and doctors to create this formula. It's made only from whole food sourced ingredients. It's got all your vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, antioxidants. It's like an insurance policy for your body's health and immunity. It's all you need to stay on top of your health game. No need for multivitamins or whatever else you might be taking. Athletic Greens has you covered, and it's super easy. You take one scoop, mix it in a little bottle that comes with the package, shake it up with some water, boom, you're done. Takes less than 10 seconds. Like I said, I take it every single day. I wouldn't skip a day. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to get 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Again, athleticgreens.com/Atlas, AG1. Teddy, let's talk UFC. Our boy Brandon Moreno in the co-main.
Great fight.
Loses his title to the great Davison Figueiredo.
The main event, let me just interrupt you. The main fight, which we're all salivating for, all respect to Orson Welles, how you did that for so many years so well. I really admire thinking about that. Pronouncing all your words so properly and perfectly. I have more respect than you know. But we were all salivating for the heavyweight fight. What a great fight, blah, blah, blah. Again, we always tell the truth here, what we believe to be the truth. And it turned out to be the co-feature that was the thriller in Manila, so to speak. I mean, what a fight. The heavyweight fight, not that scintillating at all. We'll get into it, and we'll break it down next. But, boy, that co-feature. Go ahead, Ken. Boy, what a fight.
Brandon Moreno, our friend of the show, loses his flyweight title to Davison Figueiredo, who recaptures the belt. They fought to a draw. Rematch, Moreno gets the win. Rematch, Figueiredo gets the win. Teddy, these guys are about as evenly matched as you can imagine. I think it was three rounds to 2, if I'm not mistaken, on at least 2 of the 3 scorecards. Razor thin fight. Could have really gone either way. I was hoping Moreno would get it just because he's a friend of the show. But my God, these guys put it all on the line.
Listen, he's a great kid.
He couldn't have had a better attitude after the fight. You know, look, I thought I won the fight, but credit to him. He just says all the right things, and you can tell he means it. He's a good person. And like I said on the show when he was on, the toughest piñata maker in the world. He used to make piñatas with his family in Tijuana. He's not making like the great Joe Pesci. I'm not shining shoes anymore. I'm not making piñatas anymore. I'm busting heads now. But awesome fight. So good. I got to assume they're going to be back in there with a record of 1-1-1 between the 3 of the fights they've had. So how'd you like it?
Yeah, it was tremendous. Great fight. Nothing but applause and gratitude, respect to both. Not for fighting like champions only, but for both of them behaving like champions.
And Teddy, one sec before you keep going, we're just getting a telegram coming in. Brandon Moreno, manager's hitting us, going to come in for, wants to come on the show and talk to us. So hopefully we can get that up later in the week if it's available. We'll keep everyone posted via social media. But Brandon Moreno, just a true gentleman, reaching out to come on the show. He knows how much we appreciate having him on. So sorry to interrupt, but I thought you'd like to know.
Yeah, they both showed you not only how to fight like champions, but how to behave like champions. I mean, when you get past everything, I mean, in and out of the ring, they exemplify everything in an elite athlete, an elite performer in any vocation. And again, the class of a champion, the dignity of a champion, everything. The skills of a champion, the heart of a champion. They showed it all. I mean, it's textbook. I mean, it's an example for everybody. How these guys behave. You know, fight, behave. And what, to me, the interesting part of it, when I break this one down analytically, it's like the strength of Figueiredo is he's a great power puncher, physically very strong, very gifted, obviously, but just, you know, he's got that eraser, you know, to suddenly turn the lights out, suddenly make up for any ills during a fight, for any sins during a fight. And it's almost like, the way I looked at it, it's almost like his strength got in the way in their last fight. And what I mean by that is that his strength dominated too much the first fight. He paid too much attention. He built too much around his strength, and he didn't show the other dimensions. And one of those dimensions is being patient. He didn't, and Moreno showed all those dimensions. You know, Moreno in the last fight, the first fight too, a lot of people thought he won the first, that it should have been a draw. Very close, very close. Figueiredo, I thought, got the draw in the last round in their first fight, that he won the last round. But I thought Moreno had been winning up to that point. But then Moreno goes and stops him, obviously submits him in the second fight. Then you got this fight where Moreno's the favorite. And again, what does Figueiredo do? We know about his gifts of power, that, you know, he's that lights out puncher, everything. He didn't depend on just that. He did what I talk about all the time, being dimensional, you know, using everything, being well-rounded. He showed that. Again, in his last fight, he was mostly, I guess the easy way to say, he was looking for the knockout. But he was dependent just on that, while Moreno was depending on everything and using everything, and did use everything. He used it on the striking, and then, of course, he got on the floor, and he was incredible. He was so fast. He was so smart. And he was able to submit in the fight before this, the champion at that time, Figueiredo. That's what got my attention for the young people out there, the young fighters out there, where sometimes your great or your greatest skill can get in the way of winning. Yeah, that's what I took away from it. I always try to send some kind of message or some kind of lesson out there, if I can, in my own way, but where he forgot about his other skills a little bit, and he kind of wrapped it around one skill too much in his last fight. And this fight, the thing that struck me, he showed, it was like a role reversal. Like he went from, it was like the Ali Frazier fight, and he acted like Frazier, obviously, and this time he decided to act like Ali. It was really impressive to me, Ken, what he did mentally, discipline-wise, controlling himself, knowing, being honest enough with himself, being humble enough with himself to know his mistakes, to recognize those mistakes. It was tremendous. And on the other side, I saw something fascinating with Moreno. I saw what I always see. I saw that great pride, that great Mexican pride of being a champion, because there's a heritage of champions in that country, a special heritage of champions. And I saw it, but I saw it glowing. This time, I saw it where before I recognized it, this time it had spotlights on it. It was glowing. It was like, and he's a humble kid. They're both good people. But he's a special, humble kid, and you couldn't help but recognize that the old timers always told me, Teddy, when a guy wins a title, they improve 30% automatically. I saw it in the mind that you believe you can't be beaten, that you believe you're the best now, even though you thought you were before. Now you know you are. Big difference. Thinking, knowing. Thinking, knowing. Knowing is better. Knowing is stronger. And you saw it. He was wearing it. And I'm looking at him, and it got in the way of maybe him winning. I thought it was a very close fight, a toss-up fight, a matter of what the taste of the judges were. Yeah, I really did. I thought that. Do you like volume, or do you like more precision and just spots? Because that's what won it. That's what won it for Figueiredo. He had those spots. He controlled himself. He showed a better dimension or more dimension in his approach. And he didn't go all out. He didn't get reckless. He was more contained. He kept it inside him a little more. And he picked spots. And the sensational spots later in the fight where he dropped Moreno, where he was able to get to the mat, those spots of landing a clean punch, bang, right there, it caught the attention of the judges. Where the steady work, the all-out regular work that was going on by Moreno was kind of over. It was kind of overridden. It was kind of taken away by the sensational spots. That makes sense to you? Like Moreno's fighting in just a solid, go get him fight with that 30% improvement of being champion, that pride that was just glowing. And he's fighting that way with that tenacity, and you see it. And then all of a sudden, bang, just a spot of Figueiredo being able to score a knockdown, or a spot of him scoring a clean counterpunch like that right hand. I thought that was a turning point. That right hand counter over Moreno's jab, where Moreno took for granted, got a little reckless, where he left the left hand out not only too long, but he posed. He didn't move his head. And he left it out there, and bang, a counter right hand. Just out of the sky. Whop! And it lands. And, of course, Moreno's got a granite chin. They're both solid guys in those areas of being able to endure. But he has a granite chin, Moreno, part of what makes him so special. And that caught the attention. That caught right there, that might have won the round. But it caught the attention of the judges, where maybe the steady work that I was talking about, some of that disappeared in the eyes of the judges. Some of that got overlooked by that sensational moment. And I thought those sensational moments, those striking moments, those powerful, quick moments, probably won the fight more than the overall efforts of both guys. Probably eked out the fight, I believe, on the scorecards with the judges. I believe that's the way it felt like it went. But to kind of finish and tie up what I was saying about the difference with Moreno was he had such confidence, such a glow of confidence, such a just an explosion of confidence, if you will, that he kind of overlooked some of the other things where he was a little more patient, little nuances that he had in the last fight. He kind of let them get pushed to the side a little bit in his overall approach of just being the king, being the champ. That 30% confidence extra that you get with getting that title put around you, that belt put around your waist, where he depended on that. He rode with that. Maybe that rode him. Maybe that's the right way I'm trying to say it, Ken. That almost rode him. Like it took him over. It just took him into a attack mode, a confident aggression mode. He's always aggressive, but a little extra, where with the other guy making the adjustments, Figueiredo, he was able to take advantage of that maybe over-aggression in spots. He was able to just play that well enough to have those moments that captured the fight, almost stole the fight. And I don't mean steal in a way that you usually think, oh, he didn't deserve it. No, he deserved it. Because Figueiredo made himself do what he did. He planned on that. He made that adjustment. He changed things. And he deserves credit for that. And he got credit for that. That's how I saw the fight. I found it intriguing, very interesting. And it was two warriors, again, two samurais, two gladiators. But one of those gladiators kind of switched identity, as I said earlier, and did it from a more cerebral approach than a physical approach. It looked like Moreno this time was dependent more on a physical approach, a little bit more. His skills still were there, but it was like he was riding that train of confidence and physicality a little bit more so. And the other guy switched trains, if you will. He switched tracks. And he said, next time I'm going to get on that train. I'm going to try that train. And that train got into the station on Saturday night and got him back his title. It's going to be a great, great fight with great expectation when they fight again. It really is. And I'm very curious. And I asked Mr. Moreno, the great, great champion that he is, because you never lose being a champion. He's a champion for life. I asked him if some of what I just said, if it holds water. I'm very curious because he's an honest kid. He's an honest kid. And he'll tell you. Again, kudos. Nothing but this. And I don't do that to too many people. Nothing but this. To both of those fine men, those special men, those warriors.
Yes. Couldn't have said it better myself, and that brings us to the main event. Our friend Francis Ngannou gets it done, wins the decision over Ciryl Gane. Surprised a lot of people by wrestling and grappling. Gane at one point almost picked him up over his head and slammed him. He caught Ciryl in mid-kick, got under his leg, lifted him up. Big, giant, 265-pound guy, and smashed him to the ground. Francis showed some incredible wrestling skills. He swept him. He looked good on the ground, and there's a lot of subplots to this one. It's the last fight under the contract. I believe the way it works, and don't quote me. I think that was his last fight, but he still has a year left. So I think he's tied up until December. I can't imagine he takes a fight unless it's a John Jones and a one-off, like for big, big money. That he doesn't go and fight Tyson Fury next, or one of the heavyweight champs. That's what it's looking like. But some of the subplots, Teddy, if you noticed, Dana didn't place the belt around him after the win. Nick Maynard did, one of the matchmakers, and then Dana also didn't attend the post-fight press conference, which is, I'm surprised. I mean, obviously we're friends with Dana. He's been on the show, and I'm not, we, like you always say, we just say what's happening. I thought it was surprising that Dana wouldn't show up and just confront this because it's going to have to be addressed at some point, and maybe it's part of their negotiating tactics or whatever. But I thought Francis handled the drama pretty well at the post-fight press conference. He's just said, news to me that he didn't put the belt on me. And I'm surprised he didn't come to the press conference either. But nevertheless, Francis gets the big win. He's basically cleaned out the division. I don't know who else he could fight there other than John Jones that would be enticing for him as a competitor. But how'd you like it? And were you surprised that Francis took it to the ground? Oh, and by the way, Francis also said he tore ACL, MCL maybe in one of his knees, which is interesting too, because if you don't have an MCL, I don't know how you're going to be kickboxing, or an ACL for that matter. But interesting developments. He had the sleeves on his knees that didn't seem to be very helpful at all. They seemed to be sliding down most of the fight. But what'd you make of it all?
And it's still amazing the athlete he is and the mental toughness he has, because he still threw some kicks. He still threw some kicks. And even if they weren't effective kicks, they were effective in a way that they made Gane think about something else. They can be decoys. But even if they're not effective, they make you worry about something else. And that opens up, that's what smart fighters do. Because that opens up the possibility of being able to do something that you really want to do, where the guy is not as ready for it, because you're keeping him off guard. So that should be noted. This is what I think. I think that he adapted. I talk about it all the time. To be a champion, to be a special champion, to be at that elite level, to have longevity there, you have to be more than physical, more than just great genes, just, from your parents. More than just, the talent, the physical, the tangible stuff that we look at and we brag about and that we go crazy and bonkers over. We get it. The neon stuff, the stuff that lights up, that everybody can be aware of, that everybody wishes they had. To be quite frankly, when you see a physical specimen like Francis, and again, we appreciate him. We're friendly with him. He's been on our show a couple times. I appreciate the man he is, the person he is, the humility that he has, where he's come from, what he's overcome. That's part of his strength. That's part of what he brings into the octagon, not just his physical being, but that he was homeless, that he overcame that he cares about the people of Cameroon, that he feels their energy, which he spoke about. Just the way that I know that Pacquiao feels the energy and the hope of the people, the great people of the Philippines. He feels that. He fights with that. Fighters have felt those things. Canelo, I think, feels that with the great support of the Mexican people, that you can feel that energy, that you have a responsibility, a different responsibility than just yourself. It always makes you stronger when you have to do more than for yourself, where you have a responsibility where there's people that are saying, hey, show me the way. Hey, I'm desperate over here in the Cameroon, but if I can see Francis and Ngannou make it, it gives me hope. It picks me up. It gives me strength. Then it's a little different now. Then you start to say, I got to be strong for others, because there are people that looking at it that way, looking to have their hope attached to what I can do. That if he can do it, I can do it. I remember it meant a lot to me when I used to read about the great, he's one of my favorite fighters of all time, but the great Joe Louis, where back in the day when it was a much more difficult time in this country, where we've overcome so much in this country, where everybody can make it. Everybody, if you have it in your chest, your heart, in your work ethic, anybody can make it now. But there were times when it was a much different time and world. And Joe Louis, being a black heavyweight champ, the thing that struck me about his greatness the most, Ken, it wasn't just how short his punches are and how great a finish he was. I think he was the greatest finisher of all time, but that's my opinion. But he could punch with either hand so great, and he was so calm, and he was so balanced. He was never out of position. His footwork was great. Jackie Blackburn, his trainer, who was a great fighter, did a great job in molding him. He deserves credit, so I'm giving it to him. But the greatness of Joe Louis was measured by all of that. But for me, it was especially measured and appreciated in a way that people, black people, back in those days would feel that if Joe Louis could do it, I could do it. That they got hope from him. That there were black families. I read all about the stories where, and I just liked reading about it, where a black family would say, maybe a kid would be down about something, and the father of the family would say, hey, if Joe Louis could make it, you could make it. If Joe Louis could do it, you could do it. I love it. I love when there's inspirational stories, true stories like that, of those special leaders, those special pioneers, those special people like Joe Louis that could give hope to so many people. And, I see that in Francis, that he gives hope to the people of Cameroon. And that's special. And again, that could be a power for you, yourself, not just for other people. So I love all that. I measure that as far as where he's going and how far he can go and the changes he can make and impact the sport and beyond the sport, people. But the thing for me that won this fight for him was his ability to improvise, his ability to adapt, his cerebralness, his brain that I always talk about. It's not just about the physical part. It's about how smart you can be under difficult conditions. Conditions where it's hard to be smart. It's hard to breathe. It's hard to think good. It's hard to think clearly. That you could make an adjustment in those conditions, in that environment. You could be calm in an uncalm environment and make such decisions. He made such decisions. He was losing the first couple rounds probably, standing, striking. Now, Gane, I got to be honest. What else we're going to be? Dishonest? So, again, I thought I was going to get more from him. I thought he was too tentative. I thought he was too respectful. He might have been, maybe the best word, Ken, intimidated.
I got that sense too. He seemed to be very inactive and apprehensive to let his hands go. He seemed to be like, when Francis was resting, it was like Gane was letting him rest. I was like, what are you doing, dude? I'm rooting for Francis, but I was still thinking, he's letting him recover here. And then it was frustrating from that perspective.
Ken, you're right. And let me say to your point, you'd be hesitant too if you had a 255-pound freaking giant Goliath behemoth monster in front of you, looking at if you threw a punch a little too slow, a little too soon, he might take your head and send it back to Cameroon. You might be just a little hesitant if you're smart and if you're human and blood's running through your veins. Yeah, you might be. So yes, why wouldn't Gane? Just because he's a fighter, because he's bigger, and yes, he is a champion in his own right. He was an interim champion. He was undefeated. But that doesn't mean he's not human. That doesn't mean he doesn't have those common sense thoughts. And you gotta, the great ones, they all have that. They feel it. They're scared. They're nervous. They could be going to the edges of intimidation. They control it. They put it back into the box it belongs in, where it doesn't get in their way of performance. That takes a while to get there, but that's where you have to get, to be really special and to use whatever skill you have to its utmost, to use every drop of skill that you have. Otherwise, it's not going to all be used. And I don't think it was all used. And I'm taking nothing away from Francis. Matter of fact, Francis deserves the credit in the way that I'm giving it to him. He did intimidate him, I believe. That he was, because Francis, you could see, was lock and loaded. He was ready that if Gane came close and reached just a little bit, made a little bit of a mistake in the metrics of how close he had to get in closing that gap, Francis was ready to clean his clock. He was ready to time him. He wasn't just coming after him with sloppy punches where maybe Gane could have punched in between, counterpunched, stepped to the side. He wasn't helping him. He wasn't helping Gane. He was locked and loaded, ready for Gane to make a mistake, and then he's gonna put the lights out. So Gane felt that, and it made him hesitant. A little more hesitant than he needed to be, quite frankly. He needed to use the jab more at the very least, and he didn't. But I still thought he won those rounds because he was doing more striking than Francis was. But Francis understood that. He felt that. And he felt it slipping away. He felt like, I'm going to blow this. If I stay this way, it's not going to be a scintillating fight, nothing. But I'm going to be on a losing end. I got to change it. And to his credit and his athleticism, he took his 255 or whatever the heck pounds he has. It's a lot. And he exploded forward when he saw an opening. Bang! Like a cat. And he picked that son of a gun up in the air like a sack of potatoes. And he slammed him to the ground. And he sent a message to him. I am strong. I am strong. I am the strongest. You've never been in with anybody. You might have thought you were going to outfox me. You were going to out-cute me. You were going to out-finesse me. You were going to, you were going to outbox me. You were going to out-strategize me, but my strength does impose itself. I'm imposing it now. It does mean something. And he picked him up, slammed it, sent a physical and a mental message to him. And then he stayed there. He killed the clock. You see some teams when they pull off an upset. He was the underdog, Francis, by the way. You see some teams in basketball when they pull off that, when they're underdogs, and they gotta change things to win. They gotta do something different to win, Ken. And sometimes they kill the clock. They kill the clock so the other team can't use their peripheral shooters. They can't use their speed. Whatever. They kill the clock. And you know what? I'll be damned if I didn't watch Francis consciously kill the clock. He picked him up, threw him down, and he showed his improvement, which you brought up. He showed his improvement with jiu-jitsu, with grappling, with the skills. He's worked at that, and he showed it. He was good enough to not only survive on the floor, which he did with Miocic, the champion at the time.
Miocic.
Stipe. Yes, Stipe. He did with him the first fight. He survived on the floor. Because the second fight, he knocked him out. But he had improved. He had improved in areas. He was more than just a big, strong guy. And he survived. This time he survived and thrived. He's improved. He got the position. He got the angles on the floor that he needed, the positioning of his legs, the positioning, obviously, of his arms. He escaped a leg lock that looked like
that was deep too.
Whew. That was something else. He showed his mental toughness. He didn't panic. He is tough.
Didn't even seem to faze him.
He is one of those guys that is what he looks like. He is tough. They're not all that way. They're not all that way. You find that out in life. But he is. He is tough. He earned this. People are going to say, it was boring. You're right. It wasn't the most exciting fight. But he earned it in ways that some people will never be aware of. He earned it. And
I'd say he earned it the hard way in this fight.
Well, he
gets guys out of there usually in the first round.
No, he earned it. I would say different. I would say he earned it the smart way. He didn't depend on just his punching. He said, no, I'm going to get, he used his brain. He said, I'm going to get this guy. First of all, what do I got to take away from this guy? What's giving me, I got to take away his fleetness. I got to take away his jabbing, his striking. Okay, I'm going to take that away. I take him to the floor. Now what do I have to do? Well, the guy's good on the floor. I got to make sure I don't make a mistake. I don't get submitted. And I got to have the edge. I got to get in position where I'm not only on the floor killing the clock, but I'm leading. I'm getting points. I'm winning while I'm down there. And he did all of that. And, yeah, he made it a boring fight. You know what he did? He made it the fight it had to be for Francis Ngannou to remain heavyweight champ of the world when he was the underdog in a fight. That's what he did. I always talk about the geography. Yeah, he got the geography. In this case, he got the geography he needed on the floor. And he did what he had to do. And he saw it through. He did it for 3 rounds, whatever, for the most part, because he was probably down 2, and then he evened it, and then he won it. So he did it, and it served a purpose. It took a lot out of Gane, physically, and I think mentally. It took away, his physical, some of the gas in his tank, if you will. It spent some of that gas, because then when they did stand again, he wasn't doing much again, Gane. And so it took some of the gas away. It took some of his confidence away. It broke him a little bit. It got him to where he needed to get him. To submit just a little bit. And I'm here to give him credit for that. I'm not here to say it was a boring fight. I am not avoiding that in some ways it was, but it was also intriguing to see a big man use his brain that way and change things up and go to a place that nobody thought he was going to go to, and go to that place on the mat and pull the fight out, win the fight by doing that. I want to make sure he gets credit for really what he did, not just what the look of it was, but what was behind that look, why he brought that look, and how he brought that look, and what it did for him. Wow. So I know the co-feature was the one that was, that electrified us and really was tremendous. Some people might have thought it was a letdown in the main event, but if you look at it, it all depends how you look at it. And if you look at the things that I think I just pointed out, I think you'll come away with saying, hey, yeah, you know what? Francis Ngannou did what he had to do to win that title. Some of it was unexpected, but you got to give him credit for what he did. And he pulled it off, and he did it with a handicap, which he really didn't make a big deal about. Really, a handicap of his knees with an injury going in there. He had to be hampered in some areas of doing his road work, doing some of his cardio. I mean, I'm not making no excuse. Again, I'm being an x-ray machine. I'm just saying that he had to be hampered in some of his physical conditioning in camp. But he wasn't hampered here. He is as strong and as smart up here as you would think a guy would be, as tough and strong when you see the physicality of that man. But they're not always. He is, and he proved it.
And he probably, before we get to what's next for him, what'd you make of Dana not coming into the ring or showing up at the post-fight press conference?
Hey, Dana, he runs an operation. He runs a business. If I remember my numbers, they sold that with his development of that, and the Freitas brothers. Fertitas, thank you, Orson. He sold that for like $4.2 billion. That's not shabby. Yeah. He did that because of his business acumen. He did that because he was the boss. He did that because he led the way. He's still the boss there. He's the guy that he's got to think different than someone else has to think. He's got to think about the next guy down the road. The next Francis, Francis and his manager, I give them all the credit in the world. They did what, they pulled it off. They took a risk, they stood up against the boss in some ways. They made their position noted, and they went out and did what they had to do. They had to win this fight to get to the place where maybe a year down the road, they could fight one of those extravagances, one of those crazy Listen, again, going to say it the way it is. One of those money grabs that they earned the right to be involved in. You know, one of those mega events that is just doesn't happen too often, for maybe $100 million to fight Fury or Tyson. Mike Tyson, not Tyson Fury. Yeah, I said it. That man's still around. That man still gets people crazy. That man still has a mystique to him. Yeah, I know he's 105 years old. I get it. But you know what? People still are mesmerized by that guy and what he's been in the past and what they still think he could be and everything. And with his reputation. So that I can see that they're still in the running for the possibility of getting maybe to one of those fights, you know, where they could title it, make the title their own title, make a new belt. This is for the baddest man on the planet belt. They can sell that. Because they physically represent that. They match up for that. They have the look of that. They have everything of that. So they could do that. But they couldn't do it if they didn't win here. That would have put a problem there if he lost. So they earned their right to be still in that possible position. And Dana knows he didn't sell some and build some up to $4.2 million by being stupid. He understood where he was being challenged. You know, he understood it. To his credit, the fight still went on. To their credit, with bad knees and everything, the fight still went on. Their credit, I mean, Ngannou and his team, you know. But you have to respect both sides, that they did what they wanted to do, what they needed to do. And Dana at that point, yeah, a lot of people say that it's a bad look, that it's not professional. It wasn't right. And I got it. I can understand you saying that. I can. I can. But please don't tell me you're out there, even if you didn't like it, and say that if you were in the same position 100%, you would have done different. Maybe you would have. But maybe you wouldn't have. When it comes down to what's in the backdrop, that you are the boss. You do have to be ready for what's coming down the pike after Francis Ngannou and what you believe in and how you hold yourself and the position that you take and the strength in your position, you know. So he's got a little bit more, you know, going on maybe than just the simpleness, the simplicity of just being a gentleman that we want him to be, you know. Yep. He's got a little bit more to tinkle with, to think about. So I understand both, and I do understand that, yeah, he could have got up there, put the belt on him like he does for everyone else. Yeah, I get it. That would have been nice. But maybe if he was, I'll leave it with this, Ken. Maybe if he was capable of doing that, which is a nice dimension, maybe he wouldn't be capable of getting $4.2 billion for the company. Maybe he wouldn't be capable of that. Maybe he wouldn't be capable of being the guy he had to be to get to where he got to. That's it. That's the best way I can answer that question that you threw at me from the side. You know, that little,
well, it sets up Francis to potentially fight one of these mega heavyweight champs that we talked about earlier in the show. But with that said, news stories circulating around the internet this weekend, scuttlebutt that Anthony Joshua has been offered $10-15 million pounds, so $20 million to step aside and let Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk fight for all the belts. And, you know, just at first blush, I would think take $15 million. If Joshua could work a contract with either of them and says, I'll take the $15 million, but I want to be guaranteed that I get the next shot over whoever wins that belt, so I'll fight for all the belts, because Tyson Fury has the WBC, Usyk has all the others. So if he could guarantee himself against the winner for all the belts, that might be a pretty good deal, $20 million to stand by and let these two get it on and see who emerges. But either way, it would be interesting to see Ngannou, the reigning UFC champion, face one of the reigning heavyweight champions in boxing. Obviously, I think the boxer would have a huge advantage just on experience, but I'm curious to hear what you think about that scenario.
Two separate things. The latter being our friend Francis fighting for the heavyweight title. That's a different category, like I said earlier. Hopefully I said it and explained it the right way and clearly. That's a different ball game. That's a money grab. I'm not saying there's not, realness involved in it and everything else, and danger and physicality and challenge from an athletic standpoint. Yes, I understand that. But it's a money grab. You're dependent on the imagination of the public to make that an enormous payday, an unusual payday. Maybe a historic payday, So that's what you're dependent on. So it's a little different. It's not the baddest man in the planet in a real sense. You can sell it as that, and you would sell it as that. But the real sense is where you're getting fights that are, they're showing the qualities of the greatest athletes, the greatest boxers, or MMA guys, one or the other, in the arena, challenging themselves to see how great they can be. You got some of that, but it's not an equal challenge. When you talk about the baddest man on the planet and those kind of fights, you're talking about seeing guys, again, from the same vocation, the same sport, boxing or MMA, whatever, challenge themselves to see who can go deeper, who can open up rooms in their house that have never been opened up, and put light into areas that have never been put light, and teach us, show us what greatness is. Show us what greatness of developed skills, athletic ability, since they were 12, 10, whatever they started at, what that looks like when it's attached to a special kind of person, a determined human being that, again, wants to find out how good he can be, wants to find out how great he can be, is willing, daring enough to go to places that he doesn't even, places he may never have visited before, but had wondered whether or not somebody could go there. And to be the guy, the torchbearer, the guy with the lantern, the guy with the light, to go there and take us with him. I mean, that is reserved for Ali Frazier. Even Ward Gaddy, Castillo, Corrales. That's reserved. Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran. I mean, that's reserved for that. Going to the Francis Ngannou and fighting possibly an old Mike Tyson or, preferably in his prime Tyson Fury, that's a little different. It's a little different. Again, it starts because of the money you can make. Those other fights, they're attached to money too, but they're attached to legacy. It's a little different. Who's the greatest? It's a little different. Both of them are intriguing. Both of them will make money. Both of them will really bring you to the TV set, bring you to the theater in old days when they used to actually have those fights. You go to the theater instead of pay-per-view at home. That's what draws you. But I think what we're talking about here, to put the proper perspective, the proper light on it, Ken, and to bring the haters out again, which I love to bring them out because they don't get enough exercise sitting in a basement with their underwear. They don't. They atrophy. You know what atrophy is? Your muscles atrophy. It's not good. And we need to get them out, get fresh air. So I almost take it as a, I don't know, honor in some ways that I'm the guy to call out the haters and bring them out of the basement and get them fresh air. I take a little pride in that. I take a little, so I'm helping people because I believe in helping people. This is for the people that got on me a little bit, the haters. When I said that Joshua doesn't behave when he loses the way I sometimes think that a guy that loses, you get used to behaving. Now, listen, I don't say everyone has to cry when they lose. I never said that. No, I never said that. Or give you BS when they lose, whatever. It could be a private turmoil, a private prison, a private suffering. I get it. But that's not what I'm talking about. When he lost Andy Ruiz, he just looked like it didn't matter. And again, everyone shows things differently. I understand better than you guys. I've been in the business 50 years. Okay, I usually don't talk that way. But I am. I understand better than you freaking idiots in your basement, in your freaking underwear. I hope they're clean. But I know more than you do about that. You don't have to teach me. Okay? I understand that you can show it and hide it in different ways. But whether it was the Usyk fight, whether it was the Ruiz fight, whatever, when I rather see him be, and I'm saying this in a controlled way, a qualified way, a more of a sore loser. And again, I'm not saying I want a guy to be like Wilder was when he doesn't even shake his hand. I'm not saying I feel better with that. No, I want a gentleman winner, a gentleman loser. I'm with you. What I'm saying is beyond that. You can sense it. It's palatable. You can feel it. That it just, maybe later it's different in his locker room, but you could just see that in those fights that I mentioned, the Ruiz loss, the Usyk, whatever, that it's just, it didn't seem to matter. It mattered so much to Wilder. Yeah, he showed bad behavior and bad manners and not a lot of class. But at least I saw how much it mattered to him. That you know, and again, you don't have to act that way to show for something to matter to you. But there's something to body language when you see a guy about to quit in a fight and you notice the body language before he quit. And you're afraid to say it because you're not sure if he's going to quit. But then it turns out he quits. There was something about that body language. There didn't have to be. You could have been wrong. He could, just be acting like a guy in distress or whatever. But no, it looked like he was submitting, giving in. Gonna let it go. It looked like and felt like Joshua was letting it go. Just like, okay, all right, my bank account's good. Whatever. Maybe it's just because he's so smart that it's not worth getting hurt. Okay, you could go down that road. Oh, Teddy, he's smarter than you. Go ahead. He wouldn't be the first guy that's smarter than me. Go ahead, no problem. But here's my Exhibit A in a courtroom. He's just proven to me what I said. He's consistent with what I said. When Wilder had a chance to take step-aside money, I know it wouldn't have been $20 million, but whatever, it would have been significant because everybody wanted the Joshua Fury fight because the fans in London, to you guys over there, to your credit, are huge. And you love boxing, you love your heavyweight champs, and you guys forget about it. It either would have been in Saudi Arabia where they would have gave you $1 zillion to go there, or it would have been in Wembley Stadium where, you would have put 95 or 100,000, whatever the heck it fits, into that place, and the money would have been like earth-shattering. But everyone wanted the Fury-Joshua fight. And Wilder could have gotten step-aside money, a lot. What did he say? No! Why? Because he's stupid? All right. He's not a good businessman. Joshua's a better business. Go ahead. But that's not how I take it. I take it. Now remember, I don't even like Wilder. I don't like him as a person. I don't hide it. But I appreciate what I appreciate about him. I'm not going to go and deny that either. Just because I'm not like you haters. I ain't hating for the sake of hating. If I don't like someone, I'm going to tell you. But I'm also going to tell you what I do like about them too. I'm capable of doing that. Big enough to do that, I think. And in this case, Wilder didn't take any step-aside money because it meant more to him to get back in the ring and revenge that loss. It meant more to him to redeem himself, to find himself, to prove who he was to himself. Maybe to us too, but really to himself. That meant more to him. And he put his money where his mouth was. He said, freak the money, you keep the money. I want the fight. And a lot of people probably tried to talk him out and said it's not a good business move. You can still get the fight. But you have the money too. No, I want the fight. Did you hear me clearly? I want the freaking fight now because I want the fight for me. I got money, but I don't need that. I want the fight. That's what I need. I need revenge. I need redemption. And maybe if I take the money, the fight never happens. I want the fight. Well, Joshua, to my point, just showed you the money is more important. Now, again, make the argument that he's a better businessman than I am, and better than Wilder is, and he's smarter than I am, and he's smarter than Wilder. Go ahead. I'm not going to stand in your way. I'm not going to stop you from making that freaking argument. It makes sense. You can say that. Or you can say what I'm saying. The money's more important. That it's not the most important thing to go out there and show what he is in a boxing ring. His legacy, whatever you want to call it, to fight. That is not as urgent to him to get there and get revenge, get redemption. Because Usyk could lose and then that fight would never happen again. And then everyone will say, yeah, it's okay. Look, he made more money. And you British fans will still back him up because you're still go bonkers over a Fury fight. You will, even though he's lost, even though he never revenged the Usyk fight. You will, because that's you. It's not a bad you. You just love your British fighters and you want to see them champions. You go back to the Marcus of Queensberry when they changed the rules of boxing. You're that connected to this sport. That connected. So I get it. I love yous. I love your crumpets. Just don't throw darts at a board with my picture on it anymore. I'll love you more.
They can't do it unless they come to your house.
Yeah, because you sent me the board. Thank you. I love you guys. I do, in all seriousness. But please, listen to what I'm saying before you hate, before you get your underwear all twisted up. That's nasty. But before that happens, just think of what I'm saying. The proof is in the pudding. Exhibit A in a courtroom. Argue all you want, but look at it. That he is taking the money. He's showing you it's more about being a businessman than a fighter. It's more about the money than it is about redemption, revenge, victory. Who I am! Standing on a mountain, I am king. But guys like Fury and Wilder, it is about that. And I'll finish with this. Exhibit B in a courtroom. Wilder, yeah, he lost to Fury. A lot of people are going to say, Teddy, you're so ridiculous. He lost to Fury, and he didn't get the money he could have got for the step aside. He could have more money, and everything else. And yeah, he lost. But did you see the way he lost? Did you guys see the way he fought? He fought like a gladiator. How many men get a chance to behave like a gladiator one night in their life? Not too many. How many people get to say that they actually performed and fought like a samurai for nothing but pride, legacy, memory of how what they're going to be remembered for? How many people can say that they fought just for that and they almost pulled it off? And they showed us what it is. Win or lose. You don't have to win to be a gladiator. Gladiators die. It's how you perform. It's how you fight. It's how you represent yourself. How many people can say that on one given night in their life, they performed like a gladiator, like a samurai? That they came back from the brink of being knocked out to knocking out the other guy this close, and picked themselves up time after time from the canvas to put themselves later in a position where they almost pulled it off. How many people can say that they have that inside them? How many people can say that they were that great on one night where a guy that don't even like them named Teddy Atlas is in awe of them? Awe of them. Speaking about them in the loftiest terms you could. How many people could get to that place? Yeah, I know he didn't win, but Wilder got to that freaking place. He picked himself off the mat, was hurt, was bombarded with punch after punch, and he survived it. He endured it. He dragged his backside into the corner and came out and dropped the undefeated Fury. And it came so close, but Fury had that specialness in him too. Yes, he did. It was two gladiators. It was two samurais. And yes, the samurai who was a little better with the sword, a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more developed in that area. Yeah, he was a guy that was still there at the end. But they both fought a memorable fight, a memorable battle that will never be forgotten. That again, they can tell their children, yeah, I lost, but I went in there to win. And I did everything. I did things that people dream about doing, that people fantasize about doing. And I did it for one reason, because it was that important to me. It was more important to me than getting more money. Someday they're going to have to tell their kids that. They're going to have to talk about that stuff. He earned the right to talk about that stuff. I don't know if I don't know if it's important enough to him, but I don't know if he ever earned that right. I don't know. I mean, he did earn the right on one night where he got off the floor against Klitschko, a 40-something-year-old Klitschko, but a Klitschko who could punch like hell. Still, with the right hand. He got dropped and he got off the floor. Yeah, I give it to him. I give it to him for that night. But then after that, he was different. And I think I have a reason why he was different. On that night, he was in front of his people, number one. He was in front of all his people in the United Kingdom. And he was still young enough. His bank account was still not as big as it is now. And it meant more to him at that point in his life. It meant a little. It's all about what things mean to you. It meant more to him on that particular night than it did at Madison Square Garden against Ruiz, or it did against Usyk. It just did. And I give it to him again. For all you haters out there, I'll give you that. All I ask you to give me is two things. Put away your feelings, control your emotions, your hatred, whatever we want to call it, and think. Just think about what I said. Just give it a moment. Just a moment without emotion. That's all. And I told you, I did say, Ken, that I asked for two things, right?
Yep.
So the second thing I asked for, I think it's the easier of the two. Wash your underwear. I love you guys. I even have feelings for you haters. I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken all this time to talk to you, would I? No, I wouldn't have. God bless you all.
Very good, Teddy. Thanks for that. Guys, be on the lookout for a conversation coming up with Brandon Moreno, potentially later this week. If not, then next week. And thanks for being with us. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. We appreciate you all. Have a great week.